So welcome to week 4, mindfulness, building the habit of presence. Oh, I see a typo there. Building the habit of presence, not or presence. Week 4, so I'm feeling a little discombobulated myself. Let me do this too. All right. And welcome back, and I hope your practice is going well. In a minute, I'll open it up and just see how things are going for you. We're at the halfway point of the class, which is pretty amazing. It goes so fast, doesn't it? And today, as I said, we're going to be talking about emotions. It really builds on what we talked about last week in our thoughts, being aware of stress and those things that trigger our stressful thoughts and emotions are closely linked, of course. And we're going to be talking about the very important quality of bringing non-judgment to the practice. And finally, we'll be doing a practice of equanimity, which I'll explain. I'm going to try to get a couple of meditations in here today, so bear with me as we kind of move through this. So the first thing we're going to do is a quick pause, as we often do to start these. So just taking a moment, we'll do something called 3 breaths for a pause. Nice quick exercise. You can sit comfortably, you can close your eyes if you wish. You don't have to, completely up to you, whatever you're most comfortable with. This is a quick pause, kind of an exercise that you can do on the go. So if you're still kind of a little bit moving around and more active in a sense in your body and mind, that's okay, because that's normally what we're going through in the workday. So 3 breaths for a pause is simply this. So take a nice, full, deep breath and just simply feel the breath going in and coming back out. And the exhale, maybe letting the body relax a little bit and settle. Doing that again, nice, full, deep breath in. And this time, focus your attention on the body and kind of asking yourself, what does my body need? How is my body right now? Just maybe doing a quick scan, noticing places of tightness or tension or relaxation, and just maybe, noticing, does your body need to stretch or move or relax or have some water? Whatever it is, just checking in with the body on the second breath or set of breaths.
Oh, he's loud. Who's he talking to now?
And then on the third breath, I'm going to mute everybody. On the third breath, another deep, full in, mindful breath in and out. Just notice and take care of yourself, and remember to be kind to yourself. Remember to do whatever would be helpful throughout the day to take care of yourself and give yourself some appreciation and kindness. And then settling back in, and that really finishes the pause. So if you had your eyes closed, you can open them up. But that's 3 breaths for a pause. I have that written out later in the slides, and that'll be part of the practice going forward this week. So that's something to continue to try, sort of an informal practice. And all, again, just really focusing on the breath itself, deep mindful breath, and focusing on the body, and focusing on self-kindness. All right, so how are you all doing? As I said, this is the halfway point of the class. We have, including this and then 2 more weeks. So this kind of is the halfway point. I'm going to do also, I usually do something as a follow-up, kind of a refresher booster session. We'll probably do that in April. So we'll take some time off after the last class, maybe a month, and then gather again to kind of talk about how it's going. Because remember, the whole point of this is to continue your practice, to find ways to build a practice of your own. I'm giving you lots of ideas and techniques and skills, but remember, it's building the habit. That's what the course is about, right? Building a habit for yourself so that it's integrated into your daily life, both the formal practices and the informal practices. So I want to stop and pause here and ask you, how's it going? Let's first focus in on last week. How was your practice last week? And again, you can use the chat feature. Just give me a quick thought or two of how it's been going. Are you able to get some regular practice time in? That's probably the first question. Formally, are we able to set aside a few minutes every day or most days to do a meditation? Last week, you could have done the RAIN meditation, the thought meditation. We talked about the break the worry addiction. Those were the formal ones. So how is it going with those kinds of things? And you can also, if anybody wants to speak up, you're welcome to do that as well. So feel free to unmute yourself. I think I muted everybody. All right, so here's a couple of good comments. Going great. I feel I'm getting a bit more consistent. Good. And remember, we said in the beginning, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. So that sounds like progress to me. And then I appreciated the benefit of naming my thoughts. Yeah, that is a good practice. I'm glad you did that and noticed that it has a benefit, because once we name our thoughts, it's the same thing with emotions. It's sort of naming and taming the thoughts and being able to step back from them, realize we're not that closely linked with our thoughts. We can get some space from them. And again, we'll see the same thing with our emotions. It seems to be getting better with making time for meditation. Good. Again, that sounds like good progress. I've continued my practice by utilizing the M Life Daily. Good. Excellent. I'm glad to hear that, Jen, and I hope others are using that app as well. I'd love to hear how that's going too. I've been using that along with a couple of other resources that I use, but I do use that. I did their challenge. I think it's over now, but they did a challenge. So that's something else to try, and I could show you a couple of ways to get a challenge in. Speaking of challenges, here's a good comment. I had a challenging week, so was inconsistent, but enjoyed exploring RAIN. So, well, that's actually quite good. RAIN is good to do during a challenging week, and because it's the kind of practice that you can do when things are kind of up and down and you're feeling a little bit, like I said, I was feeling discombobulated. So I hope you found the RAIN practice helpful. It's a good one to do for that, and glad you're using it. Another comment here, I'm practicing movement meditation. Excellent. Body scan at bedtime on Insight Timer, mindful eating, and morning meditation. Good. So it sounds like, Roberta, you have a really good regular daily practice going. And I know you've been doing this for a while and you're even doing some teaching. So that's great. And that is kind of a good example to aspire to, that you can learn ways to incorporate this into different times of your day. And that's what I hope that you're experimenting with and finding some different ways, whether it's in the morning, at your break, during the morning, or a lunch break or afternoon break, or before you get home, or when you get home, or bedtime. There's all sorts of different kind of transition times where you can do these things, whether they're a brief practice or a full meditation practice. So great, thank you for those comments. And the other thing that I asked you to do was to notice unpleasant events. And what did you notice? So, and again, you might hopefully be using that record form to log those kinds of things. Unpleasant events, of course, are not ones that we want to particularly stay with. But the point of that part of the practice, which actually dovetails nicely in today's lesson, is when unpleasant things occur, how do we react to those? What do we think? What does that stimulate in terms of our thought process? What kinds of triggers, stress triggers and emotional triggers does that bring up? How do we feel that in our body? So want to pay attention a little bit to that, even though it's not something we'd like to pay attention to. But, just a good example is driving somewhere. I mean, there's so many triggers when you're trying to get somewhere, and maybe you're a little bit late and people are doing their thing and they're cutting you off or whatever it is, not driving the way we'd like them to drive. So how does that land with you? Any kind of unpleasant event, maybe a comment that somebody makes, or somebody in the family gives us a little, nudge. And there's all kinds of ways that we get those little triggers of unpleasant things, right? Partly what we're trying to do here is, and I'll move into that mini lessons that you see there, uncertainty and our emotions and our unpleasant events that occur create waves, right? We can think of these as waves and ripples in the ocean, our emotional ocean life. And so the idea here is that we learn to surf rather than get tossed around by the waves. So today's lesson will focus on that in a couple of different ways. And then the quote by Tara Brach, our strongest and most habitual emotions are sometimes completely unconscious. Without mindfulness, these patterns can run our lives. So again, we touched on this last week. This is where we begin to get some insight into how these triggers, the stress triggers, the emotional triggers, the ups and downs, trigger these patterns that we've sort of these internal tapes that we have that have been cultivated over time and conditioned in our reactivity. So what we realize, and what the point of last week and this week is all about, is recognizing those patterns, recognizing even when we sit in meditation, and that's kind of the purpose of it, when we sit to meditate, realizing that, we have these sticky thoughts, or we have these conditioned emotional patterns. And by recognizing them and becoming aware of them, letting them come to the surface in a sense, we can learn to see them and not automatically be triggered and be reactive. We can learn to go, there's that thought that I often have when I use the driving thing again, when somebody cuts me off or somebody does something that I don't like in traffic, to take a breath, perhaps step back from that and go, okay, I have a choice here. I can choose to honk my horn or yell at them or whatever I normally do, or I can just, again, take that breath and maybe go, I have a choice to maybe not react automatically, but to think about, it's me that I have control over. I don't have any control over that other driver, but I have control over my response. And I have a number of different ways that I can respond in the moment. So that's the surfing. That's learning how to not be tossed about by all of those things that are going on in our lives. So the next slide is VUCA. VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And I'm sure we can all relate to these four things that we've been through in the past couple of years. They're there just as a normal part of life, but they've been amplified because of the pandemic. And we're still, really kind of, recovering and trying to reestablish whatever, I don't even want to call it post-pandemic, but whatever it is. So if you've been feeling overwhelmed and unfocused, if you've struggled with staying on task or been blindsided by emotion during this time, me too, we all have, right? But this is precisely what our prior research regarding the human brain's attention system would predict. This particular quote is from Amishi Jha, who wrote the book Peak Mind, all about attention and focus. And so, in other words, you're overwhelmed, but it's really not your fault. It's not your fault because there are all these waves, all of these triggers out there externally in our world, but also we have internal weather going on too. So again, as I said, we have control over that, how we respond internally to the weather. The other point I'll make about this is that in her research, she found that these were the things that eroded our attention, our ability to stay on task, to stay focused. And so what she found in the research, even with working with high stress occupations like many of ours are, but she worked with military and police and fire and first responders, that mindfulness practices are some of the best ways to stay, well, to recover from these, let's put it that way, from volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And so the next one I want to talk about, I'm going to go over this kind of quick because I want to get to the practices, but this is from an article, and when you get the slides, you might want to read it. This came out during the pandemic and it kind of went viral. Adam Grant is the writer, came out in the New York Times, and he called it languishing. And a lot of us were kind of stuck in this rut, sort of an emotional rut. We weren't like fully burned out at that point or depressed on the one side, but we also weren't like really alive and vital on the other end of the spectrum. We were languishing. We were in this kind of middle place of being stuck and uncomfortable and not really able. It was hard to get out of because all that was going on. So there's a couple of tips that are part of this that you can see here. So name what you're feeling. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But also an antidote to languishing is to get into a state of flow or absorption. So getting into a hobby or a task or a project that you're working on can really help us get out of that rut. Great comment here. I am recognizing more of my flow times and making a point to be thankful and grateful out loud for the moments that come easy. Excellent, perfect comment about that. It's so important to recognize it, give ourselves a bit of appreciation when we can do that, because that will, of course, reinforce that so that we can better do it the next time. A couple more tips: give ourselves some uninterrupted time. So really carving out some time that's the same that we do for meditation, but giving ourselves time to do those things that restore us, that are kind of the antidote to languishing. And then finally, focus on a small goal, little things. Do those little things that I think you were talking about that help us feel a little bit more in control, because that's kind of what we're fighting, right? It's this feeling of uncertainty and lack of control. And so the more we can focus on small wins, or what he calls just manageable difficulties, challenges that stretches our skills and heightens our resolve, that can help us feel a little bit better about ourselves. But the point is really we're going to have, no matter what, whether there's a pandemic going on or not, we're going to have all sorts of feelings. And so how are you feeling now? Just sort of turning inward and asking yourself that question. What's your emotional state today, maybe the last day or two? Maybe there's been some ups and downs. Maybe you've been able to use that RAIN exercise for some of it. But just labeling it and acknowledging it is the first step. It's the first step of RAIN. So for right now, what do you recognize? What can you acknowledge and label as your emotional state? So these emojis give you some suggestions. So maybe taking a look at these and picking one or two. And maybe it's a few of them, right? Maybe it's a mixture of positive and negative. That's okay. Because what we're doing with this is we're realizing that our emotions are valid ways that our internal lives give us an indication of what needs attention. So even if it's a little anxiety or a little some of these, I'm going to move on to this. This actually came out during the pandemic, but I like the little cartoons, and this give you some other things to pick from. They give us a sign and a little red flag as to, oh yeah, this is something that I need to pay attention to and deal with, and maybe recognize, allow it to be, rather than automatically push it away. And so maybe picking one off of this list as well. Some of us have gone through some pretty difficult things, as you can see on this list. Exhaustion, grief, terror even, and some positive things as well. We've realized there's some post-traumatic growth even, so that's good to recognize that end of the spectrum as well. But especially with some of the more difficult challenges, our mindfulness practice really can help us with some of this stuff. Now, again, I want to just say, if there are things that really kind of feel out of control, maybe it would be helpful to talk to somebody about that. And I'll remind you about our EFR service. You can talk to one of our counselors free for up to 6 sessions, completely confidential. That's one way to get help, but there's lots of people that you can talk to. So, if it's something that's not going away, that it's, even though you've made some good attempts to try to deal with a particular emotional situation, maybe reaching out to a trusted and possibly professional resource might be the way to go. But the point is that it's okay to feel these things. It's right. We're human. We can't go through life, especially the way life has been in the past year or so, with just, again, think about world events. Turn on the news, and I think that's an important one thing right there, is to monitor and regulate the intake that you have. But turning on the news or hearing about some of the very sad events that have been going on in our world that can bring up some of these very difficult feelings. So it's okay to feel this, acknowledge it, try to be with it, as the RAIN exercise does. And by acknowledging it, it can maybe make it a little bit more manageable. So I'm going to talk a little bit about self-judgment. Sometimes when these things come up, we say to ourselves things like, I should be able to handle this, or why am I reacting so strongly about this situation? I shouldn't be doing that, So in other words, we give ourselves a hard time, and we become judging of ourselves. And we say that, we kind of like add salt into the wound by doing that. It's the second arrow. The first arrow is the original hurt from what we experienced. The second arrow is what we add to it when we do this. So today we're going to explore how mindfulness can help unhook us from thoughts and feelings that can be difficult. And in the second point, you might have found even that during your mindfulness training, your meditations, that there's been a tendency to put yourself down in some way. So I'm going to read you this quote from Tara Brach. And it's this, again, that's why friendliness and an attitude of kindliness towards ourselves is so important. So she says, a key predictor of whether mindfulness will be rewarding or a struggle, and really mindfulness can be part of any self-care activity. So a key predictor is to get the idea of how mindfulness will work for you. Reflect on how you generally treat yourself, especially when you're anxious or stressed. This opens the door to how you can nurture your attitude of friendliness. So in other words, if we habitually treat ourselves with a critical, harsh, kind of judgmental attitude, that is going to be that's our conditioned pattern in these things. So doesn't mean you have to continue to do that. The key here is that by our mindfulness practice, we can learn to unhook, and we can learn to do this differently. That's the key thing, and that's what we're really learning. It's not going to just happen by our awareness. It's going to be something that we have to work at, and that's why our practice is so important. So the antidote is self-compassion, and we're going to actually spend the 6th class focusing in on self-compassion. So, but just to say for now, as sort of a prelude to that, the power of mindfulness to free you from self-judgment will increase as you learn to see the pain that comes with the judging. How much tension or anxiety or depression or shame our self-judgment causes. With mindfulness, when you start recognizing the pain of self-judgment, you can pause. You can simply say to yourself, it's that recognizing, this hurts, and I'm hurting myself with the judging. I'm making it worse, right? It's that second arrow. When we can bring mindful presence to the pain of judging, a natural compassion arises or begins to arise. And as Tara Brach again says, is you're recognizing this is a little painful and kind of asking yourself the question, this is how it is right now. Can I be with this? And again, with practice, we can learn to be with it a little bit more. All right, so enough talking about it. Let's do a meditation on emotions. And again, this is from the work of Tara Brach and Jack Kornfield. So just to give them credit, I really love some of their work. A lot of it is available, and if you're looking to connect with it more, just reach out to me. I'm happy to give you some ways to find some of their work. They do have things. I've come across their stuff on Insight Timer, that particular app. You can find their work. They both have websites, but anyway, so as a prelude to the meditation, again, just reminding you, our strongest and most habitual emotions are sometimes completely unconscious. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make the unconscious conscious. So we're going to be bringing, things may come to the surface. And so I want to just say, if there's something painful or uncomfortable, you can always return to the anchor of your breath or the body. That's why we practice those in the beginning. Those will always be there. Those can always steady us and provide, even give us an anchor, even when the waters are turbulent. So they're there, they can help us learn to surf. So feel free to do that during the meditation. And because we'll bring up, maybe some emotions may be stirred up a little bit. All right, so sitting comfortably, taking a moment to establish a posture that's comfortable and relaxed and balanced, so you can be paying attention but also relaxed. The most important thing here really is being relaxed. When we bring up difficult thoughts or emotions, that tends to trigger in our bodies some tightness or constriction. So whenever you notice that, feel free to take some deep breaths and feel free to relax yourself. And that's why it helps to really to make relaxation a routine. So take a couple of deep breaths and really feel the relaxation, especially as you breathe out. Let your body settle and relax. Let your shoulders relax. Let your jaw muscles, anywhere that you feel a little bit of tightness, especially as you breathe out. Let them soften and relax. Take a minute or two to do this. With your breath, you can also feel into the body, and your body can be a great anchor. So feel the connection your body makes with your chair beneath you, with your feet connecting you to the ground. You just feel the solidity of your body, the weight of your body. And you might try bringing a half smile of kindness to your face. Just feel this smile and let this kindness fill your body. It's kind of a receptive, open presence. And bring kind of this relaxed, focused attention to your anchor, the breath and the body. Let your mind calm, let the body relax, bringing a sense of calm and ease. Now turn the same quality of careful attention to notice whatever feelings are present right now. Let your mindfulness have an attitude of gentleness, care, and interest. And just be open to whatever emotion is present, whatever might have been going on earlier today or going on in your emotional life, in your family life, in your work life. Just being open to this, receptive to this, being aware of the emotional waves that are here. And exploring this amazing river of human feeling as a witness. And just acknowledge, even if several feelings are present at once, or maybe sometimes there are a few feelings that are quiet and more subtle. Just continuing to breathe, allowing the body to relax if it's gotten a little more tense. Noticing that, releasing and relaxing. And acknowledge each feeling as if with a bow. No need to judge, just let them be. They're part of the human river of feelings. Noticing whatever feelings are present right in this moment. And also notice how the feelings are experienced as body sensations. So whether it's anxiety or joy, resentment or friendliness, each can be felt as patterns of energy and sensations in different parts of the body. See if you can sense where feelings live in the body and how sensations feel. Opening to whatever you're aware of with a kind, receptive attention. Moment to moment, noticing the feeling that lives through you. And you might ask, what is happening inside me right now? And can I be with this? Feelings move and change slowly. And simply notice them and Let them be. The point is not to stop the river of feelings, but to notice them with awareness. Now again, return to feel the breath, calming and steadying the attention as you arrive at your home base. Continue feeling the breath or the body as an anchor. And at any time, if a strong feeling arises, then let the breath recede, and again, acknowledging, bowing to whatever feeling is prominent. And then when it's no longer calls your attention, arrive back at your anchor or your home base. And in this way, you're learning to be centered, balanced, and present for the breath, body, and emotions, responding as needed, wisely, and aware of them all. So let's finish the meditation by slowly opening the eyes if they've been closed. Feel free to move a little bit, wiggle the fingers or toes, stretch, maybe looking around, just noticing what's in your visual field, what sounds do you hear, allowing yourself to reconnect with your present surroundings. So that's a meditation on emotions that can be one of our practices this coming week. And feel free to put into the chat a word or two or a phrase of what that was like for you. Because remember, part of this is noticing what was the experience of doing that. And if that kind of meditation is new to you, we're really opening up a whole new room of our awareness, in a sense, right? Being more open to our emotional life, being more open to the waves, and seeing how we can gain some equanimity. And that's really the next. Well, I'll try to finish with a small practice. I'm going to try to get done by, say, 12:50, 12:52, something around there. But equanimity is this sense of mental calmness, composure, evenness of temper, especially in difficult situations, challenging situations. So again, think of how many times we felt those during the pandemic, but continue to, depending on what we're all going through in life. As you can see there's a number of synonyms. And so part of what I think one of the huge benefits of our mindfulness practice, and again, practice is key, is developing this sense of composure or being calm or serene or cool-headed. And, this can really help us and can, getting back to the surfing analogy, instead of being tossed around by the waves of all those things that are going on, because we can never stop those. They're always going to be there. But we can learn to surf them, or we can learn to at least swim in them. We can learn to return to our anchor. We can learn to maintain this even-mindedness, this equilibrium, poise. All right. So let's do an equanimity practice. There's a couple of ways that we can do this. There is a practice called the Eye of the Hurricane that's on the page from the EFR website. You might want to try that. But actually, I'm going to do something that's called Strong Back, Soft Front by Joan Halifax. And it's a nice image of feeling the strength and support of our spine and getting in touch with a strong back that helps us be strong and resilient, even though there are many things that challenge us, but also soft front. The idea that we can maintain a soft, open, receptive front so that we can be compassionate to ourselves and others. All right, so let's do a brief practice, and then we'll finish with what our weekly practices are. So again, take a moment to get settled. Close the eyes if you wish, or if you prefer, keep them softly opened down in front of you. Notice the sensations of your body sitting, the support of your seat, and allow yourself to relax into it. Let the body settle. Let the mind settle. Take a few deep breaths. And again, feel the breath and establish the breath as the anchor. And then just let the breath return to an easy, natural rhythm. And gently shift your attention to your spine. Sense your spine without judging or evaluating. But your back is a physical metaphor that points toward your natural capacity to hold yourself in the midst of difficulties, to be balanced, to hold all beings and things in equal regard. And this is called equanimity. Your ability to be present for whatever is happening in any given moment. Now breathe into your back a sense of energy and breathe out any tension. Breathe in a sense of energy and breathe out any tension. And appreciate this body, knowing that equanimity supports you in the experience of opening to others. Being present for any difficulty you or others might encounter. And you can remind yourself of this value of equanimity by silently saying to yourself, strong back. Strong back. Now let your attention go to your belly and breathe deep into your belly. Notice the natural course of your breath as your belly rises and falls. And let the breath find its own natural rhythm. Allow your breath to breathe itself in and out in this moment as it is. And again, on the out breath, you can release tension from the face, the neck, and the shoulders, from the hands and legs, and feel the natural courage and openness as you breathe into the belly. And now shift your attention to your chest and sense that tender, open space in the center of your chest. And rest in this openness. And notice if there's a sense of warmth or care there. Care that you could extend to others for compassion or suffering in the world. And if you don't notice any feelings of warmth or tenderness, that's okay. Just notice what you do feel. Allow yourself to be available to whatever is arising. Allowing the chest and the belly to remain soft with a sense of caring and compassion. Soft front. Noticing these sensations in the front of the body, in the heart area, in the belly. Soft front. And bringing them together, this sense of equanimity and compassion, these qualities are two sides of the same coin. Strong back, soft front. Soft front, strong back. And please remind yourself often that being the spirit, that rather to bring the spirit of the practice into your everyday life, recalling the importance of balancing equanimity of compassion, and bring both of these qualities into focus at a time when there's so much turmoil and uncertainty in our world. Strong back, soft front, equanimity and compassion. And if your eyes have been closed, you can open them up and include the world in this moment. And may this practice that we've shared truly be a benefit to yourself and to others. All right, so again, feel free to, as we begin to close out today's overall session, if you have any comments or if you noticed anything in particular as we did that exercise, feel free to put that in. So we're trying to get this sense of calm and ease despite the ups and downs. We're trying to learn to surf the waves, even though we were tossed about, which, you know, remember, surfing is one of those skills that takes a lot of practice. It's the same thing with our meditation practice and our mindfulness practice. And that's what I hope that you're beginning to develop. So as we go through these weeks, we can learn to surf. Even a dog can do it. So I'll leave you with that cute image. And the daily practices, the formal practice, try the emotion meditation. It's on the EFR meditation page. There's a couple of others there. There's that Eye of the Hurricane. There's others that you might try. The informal practices, you can try the 3 breaths for a mindful pause, or the stop or continue the 3-minute breathing space. When I send the slides, you'll see this one. There's the 3 breaths for a mindful pause. Also the practice meditation links. You'll get these links. And this quote here, which is really quite good, again, by Tara Brach. Research shows that mindfulness training increases our access to balance, resilience, and accurate perceptions, even in the midst of strong emotions. Neuropsychology calls this expanding our window of tolerance. So thank you all for being here, and I see a couple of thank yous, so thank you for your thank yous, and again, I hope you have a great week trying your different practices out. Remember, just do the best you can. Be good to yourselves. You deserve it. Remember to give yourself some kindness as you go through this. And thank you so much for being with me today. And wish you all the best as I stop the recording.